Any questions for Anna?
Did you say pictures or samples?
Mr. Rosen, good evening.
Good evening. Since the inception of the new semester, the halls are bustling with activity of all sorts, from clubs to academics, and even song and dance leave the community bursting with energy as coach buses come and go. Now, after a week-long respite, we continue our pursuits, large and small, as a long and exhausting march begins. For students, clubs and activities are copious in their respective functions. Groups like the math team and the performing arts are competing against other schools and are carrying on many more events in the works. Academically, students are forging on in their intellectual endeavors, with AP students especially getting in final material before test prep begins. Also rearing its ugly head is senioritis, though I like to think that I've gotten my booster shot. For seniors, this time marks the final trek, but also the period before events like prom and the culmination of our achievements, triumphs, and endurances. And for others, course selections and planning for next year reign prominent. Winter sports are coming to a close soon, as many teams have made profound strides in their respective seasons. Upon our return from break, the student council enters a period of great activity, with preparations for the spring dance underway, with the theme being the Enchanted Garden. Our MASC delegation is preparing for Hyannis next week. And before the break, we had raised $1,000 of our $2,000 goal. We are excited to see what ideas and insights we can bring back to enhance the Tantasqua experience for all. The last week of March, Student Council will be collaborating with a myriad of clubs, including the Diversity Club, the Be Good to People Club, and the Save Club, to host Dude Be Nice Week. This Spirit Week aims to foster kindness and acceptance within the halls of our school, and the added efforts of our Diversity Club underscore this point through the integration of social justice themed activities, as well as their monthly poster campaign, with March being in recognition of women. The community has achieved much behind our collective resolve and talents, which will only continue. I look forward to updating you on further achievements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for our student representatives? Yes, Ms. Cheryl.
I don't have a question. I just want to say that JJ included in his report, he's a 4-year member of the mock trials. He's finished, and although COVID kept us out of the courthouses for 3 of those 4 years, he's a great example of the kind of student who takes full advantage of all the great activities we have. So, and you can tell from his reports just how good he was as a sawyer for the mock trials.
My best.
So,
And I'm sure you're happy we don't charge fees for those clubs.
Yeah, I would have had to have gone to a few different banks already.
And we have to applaud his sense of humor.
yes.
That's awesome. That's great. All right, well, in the spirit of today being the first day of Women's History Month, Ms. Joseph, we'll let you go first.
All right, absolutely. To parlay on that, I'm paying very close attention to my phone because I'm getting scores in. We have 2 playoff games going on tonight. Our co-op hockey members with Auburn are taking on Somerset Berkeley and are up 2-0 after scoring off 2 power plays. And we are just coming off of halftime, and we are up 32-20 versus Auburn, ironically, in the boys' game. So thankfully, we've got great sportsmanship and a good partnership with them. So we do have our winter sports coming to a conclusion. We also, in addition, we have our girls basketball team playing on Friday in their first round. We also have one of our track members is going on to states this coming weekend as well. She actually, Haley McCormick, grade 10, she broke her own personal best and school record this past weekend or 2 weekends ago over break. So we are looking to finish up the winter season strong. We are already looking toward our spring sports season with our informational meeting tomorrow after school for students. We also embark on our new partnership with Family ID and Arbiter as our partner in our documentation and filings to save us a great deal of money, actually. So that was a budgeting decision, and hopefully you'll see that it's a really much more user-friendly product as well. So we're happy to begin using that for sports, summer camps, ski club, and things like that. As Jake indicated, we are looking academically at things too. We have our course selection process taking place currently. Our juniors and grade 8 students have already had their meetings. We were scheduled with grade 10 yesterday, so we've rescheduled that to tomorrow to meet with grade 10, and we'll finish up with grade 9 next week and look to wrap that up to begin our numbers and our course selection. We also are preparing our AP students for their AP exams. We have SAT boot camps that we've been sending information out. Signups are taking place now to help prepare our 11th grade students for their May and June SATs. So we do have a lot of good things taking place there. Our student council, as Jake said, has been working in collaboration with many of our more community service oriented groups. The Sandy Hook Save Promise Club, which is looking at their own week and kind of joining it with ours. They have their Start with Hello, Say Something week, and we are joining efforts with them along with Be Good to People and many of our other clubs in order to bring awareness to a number of things. And each year we focus on something different with regard to our clubs with Do Be Nice, but the focus is really about being good community members, good citizens, and being a welcoming environment to everybody. So those are the things that we have on the horizon for this month.
And a cameo from Mr. Plum across the hall, which was much to my
Yes,
surprise.
so not to leave fine arts out, but yes, we have a cameo across the street from Mr. Plum.
We
He's
really should
working
bring
with
him in.
all region, the younger kids right now, but last week he was working with our music students for the Quabbin Music Festival. It marked the 50th anniversary of the Quabbin Music Festival, which actually Mr. Plum, as a former Tantasqua staff member, was a founding member of that Quabbin Festival. So 50 years ago, as a teacher here at Tantasqua, he was one of the founding members of that Quabbin Music Festival. And we did have students, we hosted it the week before vacation, which was great. And we also had students involved in that. This coming weekend, we have students involved in the Mass Music Educators Association All-State. And we also have show choir competing. Cross your fingers on Saturday that the weather holds for them. They are also away and really going into the thick of their competition season currently. And our cheer squad, not to leave them out, they also compete in regionals this coming weekend. So we've got a lot going on. It's a busy time.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ms. Joseph. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Before our student reps take off, forgive me, Mr. Johnson. I mentioned Jake is a 4-year member of mock trial. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Anna is another example of the kind of students who jump in from tech and academic into our extracurriculars. I put out an SOS for witnesses when we were short for mock trial. Anna answered the call and stepped in and was great in a very difficult position. So I didn't want to mention, Jake was here for 4 years, but in many ways Anna had the more difficult position coming in as a senior. So I just wanted to comment on that again, that they both represent the kind of students we should be applauding.
That's awesome. Thank you for all you've done for the district. Ms. Joseph, you've got a donation
Yes.
you'd like us to accept.
I have one other thing, and that is that I have a request. We've received a $300 vanilla gift card, which is a Visa gift card, from a family whose child is in the Pathways program. They donated a $300 gift card for our Pathways teachers to use for materials for the classroom, and I'm asking your permission to allow our teachers to accept this gift card to use for the purpose of classroom materials, which our special education department chair would oversee.
I'll entertain a motion. That was made by Mrs. Randall, seconded by Mr. Goodwin. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, by unanimous consent, so approved.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Sturgis, good evening.
Good evening.
Your tie matches my shirt.
I like to, yeah, it's a good color. Look better on you though. It's tough to follow that act. There's a lot going on at the high school. So what we lack in quantity, we make up for in quality, I guess. So at this time of year, we just wrapped up ski club. Both sides of the street did. We had 6 weeks of, we had 1 week of the ice cold night, Saturday night, where it was in the negatives, and we were the only ones up there. So our kids had the entire mountain to themselves. And I think they actually liked that the best. So So ski club is off and done for the year. Winter athletics is basketball for us, boys and girls. I had to make a correction. I wrote this report on the day of the final game. The girls did not win it, so unfortunately they're 7-8, not 8-7. So I have to correct my error in the record. But they had great seasons, both boys and girls teams. And so they were fun to watch. Got a lot of compliments. We typically do get compliments from other schools when we're on the road. We just had our 8th grade presentations from the high school on Monday. So our students will start the process of building their schedules and meeting with Mrs. Flanagan, I almost called her Marie Flanagan, Mrs. Flanagan next week. So that process goes very quickly at this point. And so it feels like with all the planning around spring activities in June, end of year things for 7th and 8th graders, and now scheduling, it feels like it's going very quickly for what Jake referred to as the long drag of March. So we did have Safer Internet Days. The one thing I did want to highlight specifically, with we made the Sturbridge News paper for that. We had a day where all of our students participated. I got to the point where I had to accept that we can't convince them not to use the internet. It doesn't work. So we try to take some time to teach them how to use it appropriately, at least make a good faith effort. And actually, Mrs. Santos, our computer teacher, through the exploratory department, actually created an entire breakout room program for a 50-minute block, and it touched upon 4 key things: with hate speech on social media, internet safety around strangers and things like that for the kids, sexually inappropriate things, sharing, and things of themselves is very appropriately, tastefully well done. And then all kids at the end of the day signed it's out on the wall in the hallway, a Safer Internet pledge. That they pledged to use the internet and social media safely, which not all of them are following their word on that, but that's okay. TikTok's not helping. And then just in our music department, I don't want to go through the entire thing that's in there. I did want to highlight that we did, I actually was at the concert as well. I didn't know, I wasn't here in Tantasqua as a student, so I didn't have, I'm drawing a blank on his name, was Mr. Plum. I know he's beloved, and so.
You've never seen him conduct the band.
I saw him last
Never
week.
seen it.
I have it on video.
I did agree to allow them to continue their practice for all districts, band practice tonight. I did not know that they're breaking up into their sections in different parts of the building. I did not say percussion should be across the hall, so I did warn them if it gets too loud, they should shut the door, but I'm sure it's gonna be awesome, and I know they're getting together as a full band at 7:30, so if you're still around at that time, then you can pop your head and see them. But I did want to highlight, we had 3 members of our band who qualified over at the Quabbin Festival. We also had 6 members of the band who qualified for districts. We had 1 student in 8th grade for a chorus who qualified for districts, and they had 3 members of our band, or our chorus, on stage at the Quabbin Festival 2 weeks ago. So we were represented, and we hosted too, which is kind of awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. Questions for Mr. Sturgis? Mr. Wood.
Alrighty, so just a couple things. As Anna said, we are finishing up, the kids are in the 9th rotation. So on the 7th of March, we have a non-trad assembly. And that is basically for those kids who are females in carpentry, males in health careers, present to the kids so they understand that you're not locked into a job because of your gender, that you can do anything and everything you want, and they do a great presentation. They will later that morning select their shop, and that's a process and a half, because you'll have kids who aren't there that day, so now you have to call them and say, what are your shops, because I can't do the whole list until I can't leave shops open for 2 kids that are out, because whatever. So it's kind of a crazy day. But on the 9th, the students will be placed in their shops for the rest of the year. And some will be in their 1st or 2nd choice, some will be in 3rd or 4th choice, but there is a wait list that is in place. Connect Head Call will be going out this weekend to the parents of the 9th graders so that they know that. In my report, you saw that the carpentry kids did some work for a group called the Central New England Equine Rescue Inc. When they asked for the job, I really didn't have it visually in my head what they wanted, but I turned it over to the teachers, and this is their winter bulletin, and in the winter bulletin is this page which is for Tantasqua. And it basically says, great job, huge thank you to Tantasqua High School students and teachers for creating mini doors for Captain Jack and Thunder. Absolutely fantastic job. We had a great time meeting great teachers and each talented student. So this was for mini horses, not ponies, mini horses. So visually, if you think about it, here's the mini horse and here's the stable door. So what the kids did is they actually made stable doors, and then the manufacturing kids engraved their names on the doors for both Thunder and Captain Jack. So it was nice to get a thank you, and the kids had a ball when they went there because they got to play with horses and dogs and everything else, so that was fun. And I'm happy to report that we got the Gene Haas Foundation grant again this year, and it's a $12,000 grant, and that will then go towards retrofitting a piece of equipment, but also, more importantly, for the 4th year in a row, we'll be able to give 2 $2,500 scholarships for kids in manufacturing, and that's the Gene Haas Foundation grant. So that's off. What I love about this grant and the company is the only limitation you have on spending in this grant is you cannot buy anything from Gene Haas. So I think that's a credit to what they do for the community. And that's my report.
Questions for Mr. Wood? Thank you, Mr. Wood. We'll revert back to committee reports. Budget, Mrs. Noyes Miller.
Okey dokey, so we had our meeting on the 25th, and you all had in your packet the budget. So I'd like to make a motion of a fiscal '24 budget of $27,804,102.
To move forward to the public.
Correct.
We have a motion made by the budget subcommittee, doesn't require a second.
Okay, so this figure, we voted, it cannot go up, it can go down. When we had our meeting, we did not have the state figures yet, which we still don't have all the state figures. We'll be meeting again, we have a meeting next Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, if anybody's interested. Hopefully, Deb will have a better idea then as to the funds we're receiving. It was unanimous with the understanding that we will be looking at this and presenting a 5.6% budget would not be feasible for the towns without having additional state aid.
So this is the budget we're asking to move forward to March. We only in the last, well, the governor's budget completely just came out yesterday. Friday, some of the Chapter 70 numbers came out. They are not initially as good as they were last year. So my gut at a quick look and trying to pull together all the elementaries, because it is a full picture of education that we usually try to look at, is I don't think we're gonna get this budget. So, but I'm asking you all to support this to go to the public hearing. By then, budget will have met for at least 1, maybe 2 more meetings. And we might on that night be recommending reductions when we put out assessments. As I've said all along, this may very well be a time that we put out things in March that we end up reducing again in April and May as we get a better feel of where our towns stand. Some of the biggest issues are around special ed and out-of-district tuitions that impact the elementary budget more than Tantasqua's. So we have to look at all of that. I think the state understands it. I think there will probably be legislative additions and movements. Unfortunately, when they get to June and say they've found some way to help with those out-of-district costs, I'm concerned it could be too late. We will already have put out budgets with reductions and then they come. So it's gonna be a little bit of a challenge to maneuver through. We have, as the summary document there shows kind of the big hits as to what's causing our increase. Again, is 5.5 big for us? Yes. I don't think it's outrageous compared to what I know some of my peers are looking for, and I'm hearing Proposition 2.5 override plans in neighboring towns. We have to be realistic. We're not gonna ask for it because we're not gonna get it. And to be in a place of having no budget is worse than being in a place where we may have to squeeze some things. So we've got a lot of work to do, but we're asking you to support this number for the next step. And then we'll keep you posted and come back to you with some tweaks. You can see Utilities, we have no control over. We definitely have mental health issues and special ed needs that we have the need for another adjustment counselor, so that is in the budget. We are trying to wean off of ESSER 3 monies so that the cliff is not huge next year. But those are conversations we can have as we get closer. So we're asking to support the number as is, that's in your packet, but we'll definitely be coming back with more information.
We also have added the additional school suspension aid
We have on both sides of the street tried to get in-school suspension back,
that we had cut.
partly in response to new suspension laws that are kind of tying our hands a bit, but also in general need, and we actually may want to craft it and call it something different. It's really more in-school resources that we want to make sure we use them, but we have not had them since pre-COVID, when we gave up in-school suspension to get a little more substitute coverage.
Discussions on the budget?
Have you heard any rumblings from
Yeah,
anywhere? No, lots of.
It's not Sally Sunshine.
no.
No.
It's not pretty.
No.
It's not pretty. Well, and again, it's not pretty because in the past, when we've had some bubbles at Tantasqua, it's because clearly enrollment is higher at Tantasqua than elementaries, and I can say, so you gotta put more in at secondary than elementary. These out-of-district tuitions are causing a lot of problem in 3 out of 5 of the elementary budgets. So when that's inflated because of that, and some of those tuitions are secondary students, because remember, all out-of-district tuitions are in the elementary budget.
Yeah.
We have had students that we could no longer service here in these buildings and ended up in out-of-district placements. That money goes down to the elementary school. So we've gotta look at those all together, but there are 3 towns that are struggling, and my first kind of pass is, there's just no way that they physically have the money. You know me, I'm gonna fight the fight if I know they have the money and just don't wanna give it to us. But we're not gonna go into towns and tell them they need to sacrifice their public safety for schools.
It never works anyway.
Right,
so,
no.
yeah.
So we'll keep chatting and get through. The first official public hearing is tomorrow night for Burgess. So we kind of kick off the public hearing month, and at the end of the month, I am sure I'll start hearing more from Finance Committee, what they really think they can or can't do.
Yeah.
Further yeah.
Oh, sorry, is our hearing on the 21st?
Yes, yeah.
Across the hall.
Yeah.
Which actually, you're right, that's usually part of the report, is just
Right.
unanimous consent, you don't have to
Right,
vote, but what we
exactly.
typically have done in our March meeting is start the public hearing at 6 o'clock, and then we'll post the regular meeting to immediately follow. Yep.
And I just will inform the committee, I am traveling for business that week, and unfortunately can't get out of the trip. So Mr.
Mr.
Haggerty
Haggerty,
will
you're
be
up.
chairing the meeting. I've never, ever missed a public hearing in my 13 years on the committee, so it pains me to not be there, but I have all the confidence in the world in the committee. I've reviewed the budget at length, had a lot of conversations with committee members. There's not, what's that?
You missed one, I remember.
Really?
You did.
Got a shot across the bow? I don't ever remember missing
You
it.
did, you missed
Well,
one.
that's not a lie, because I don't remember.
You might
You
not
like
even
that,
been-
the lawyer loves that.
You might have not even been, I don't recall.
I simply don't recall.
You might have not been the chair.
Or I'll be leading the, yeah, I might not have been the chair. I've never missed this chair. But anyway, I think we're doing the right thing. We know, and we've done it before, right? We put forward a budget that ensures we protect our programs. There's a lot of uncontrollable costs that are driving the budget where it is. I've said to Deb, 5+%, I'm slightly allergic to that long-term because I don't think it's affordable. But I think we need to let things flush out before we actually decide what's affordable and what's not. So I will be thinking of all of you while I'm down at Dell Match Play.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Any objection? By unanimous consent, the budget proceeds.
Did we actually vote that number?
Yes.
I've got the number
Okay.
and I've got the
It
date
was in
of
the
the
motion.
public hearing. I heard it all.
No, I just didn't remember if there was actually a vote to support it. No.
No, not tonight.
All right, we will move to curriculum, Mrs. Barnacle.
No, April is the next
feel like attacked tonight.
April is the next meeting.
All right.
And, the focus is AP, is that correct? Board, okay.
April when?
April tenth? Yeah. College Board and AP participation.
April 10th,
Just before?
downstairs.
Is that the day of?
Mrs. Fitzgerald,
Yes,
you're gonna
Mr.
be nice to me,
Gonzola.
I can see it.
We met on February 15th, talked about quite a few policies, none of them are on tonight's agenda, so those will be before you next month. We did also talk about a process we're going to start of systematically going through our student handbook and trying to help our leadership take the fat out of the student handbook, and certainly through the eyes of bylaw and policy, making sure that as a statement of our policy, we're comfortable with what's stated in there in terms of references to our bylaws and policies and versus things that should be taken out and simply cross-referenced. So it's gonna be an extended process. We'll start that this coming month, but in the meantime, you have just one policy in front of you. It's here on second reading, amended second reading and adoption. There have been no changes to that policy. It's the student discipline policy that we took up last week. No changes from first reading, so we'd ask that it be adopted on amended second reading.
It's a recommendation of the Bylaw and Policy Committee, we'll bring it to the floor. Quick one, Michelle, just given the dialogue we just had.
Yep.
We cite in here in school suspension, are we gonna change that terminology in the policy, or are we okay with it going forward?
No, I think it's okay in the policy.
It's okay in the policy.
Yeah.
Yep, it's okay in the policy.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example.
Yes.
This policy is almost copied completely in the student handbook, and it's becoming so cumbersome for parents, for administrators, for teachers, that part of our process will be to go through and try and make sure we're only referencing where we need to, and that everything appears where it should, whether it's in our bylaws or in the student handbook. So it's probably gonna last beyond this spring, but it's a good process to
There
start.
you go.
Discussion? Are there any objections? Seeing none, then by unanimous consent, the JIC policy is approved on second reading.
And there will be more coming, and I apologize, bylaw and policy met on the day. We were
Right.
trying to package way too many school committee things to get out before
Right.
the break. So there are some sitting, waiting to come next month.
Which is fine.
Lloyd, Mr. Gillen, I'm sorry, I skipped technical, I didn't mean to do that.
No meeting, no report.
Okay, I did mean to. Negotiations, Mrs. Randall.
No meeting, no report.
And building and physical plant, Mrs. Leo.
We had a meeting tentatively scheduled for the 21st, and we're gonna move that since
Their budget.
Good.
Oh.
if we could hang out and find another date, I would appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. I'll move to communications, the ECF funding commitment decision letter. Deb, do you want to speak to this?
I do. This is my Sally Sunshine moment. I've been sitting on this one for, February 1st, for a long
A
time.
nice figure.
Because we had just met. So this is a fantastic win surprise. Greg Rosso applied a number of months ago for a federal E-rate grant and found out a month ago that we are going to get $700,000 for the sole purpose of Chromebook purchase. And that money will buy 1,800 Chromebooks, one per student. Now, first, we gotta give them time to actually get them in and figure that all out, so it's probably a summer thing. We've had conversations, we've said all along that we wanted to not be one-to-one for the sake of being one-to-one, but always be able to have devices to any lesson plan that a teacher wants to have enough devices, and kids who need them to have the devices. So our high-level conversation now is when we finally get these in, our vision, and I've talked to both of the principals, all three principals, and Greg Rosso, is we think these give us enough devices to put a cart of devices in every single teaching classroom. So every time a teacher wants them, you pull them out, the cart is sitting there. In addition to that, everything that we have purchased in the last year or two becomes a reserve that we can then, to any student who needs one, come and sign out for the year. And we think that's kind of the way to go, but it's very exciting. It'll be a lot of work to bring on, to deploy, to set up, talking about what, is it a rolling cart, or are a couple of our classrooms actually have embedded shelves in the classroom? If we can, we will probably look at using some of our capital money that we have for Chromebooks for the actual containers, because we're literally just getting Chromebooks, we're not getting the carts. But that was very exciting news. And we won't even physically receive the money. We get the letter, they tell us they will be Dell Chromebooks, because the feds have gone out to bid already and done all of the work. So.
Let me just be clear for the record, that Mrs. Tui, Mr. Goodwin, and I have no knowledge or
Financial
decision-making
benefit,
on the
exactly. No, the federal government did all of the procurement process, and they literally will place the order and send and pay for them. So on the books, we're gonna have to bookkeep that we received this grant, but we won't physically receive the money or pay the bill. We will just get the devices.
Such a nice moment for you, those music that just started.
This is what it feels like.
She cued that out.
It'll be great, so.
Hallelujah moment.
Trumpets would be
Yeah,
nice.
and we will within the next year on the capital plan, as well as some E-rate funding with ESSER, we should have both buildings fully updated the Wi-Fi access points within the next 6 to 9 months. So it's a lot for our IT people to be doing, but it's a good problem to have. Yep.
Why don't you finish your report?
Oh, boy, yeah, that was it in communications, whether it was in communications or my report, didn't matter too much. Full disclosure, the school choice applications to date is not something we usually give you at this point. It actually is copied from another school committee agenda. I'm happy to, we'll be talking next Wednesday about school choice applications as part of the budget subcommittee. Yeah, I think they're fairly in line with what we've had for a number of years. I think last year we had it a little bit smaller. For 7th grade at this point, we have 29 applicants. We've taken in the 30s for a long time, or low 40. So we'll talk about that next month and see what we feel like next week that we're comfortable taking, but that will be part of your vote at your March meeting, is to vote what slots per grade, so that on April 1st, we can send letters out to everyone who has been applying, so they have their answers. Other than that, just the reminder, we're still trying to lock down the actual agenda for the retreat, but we do have March 25th. Is it 25th?
Well, we've got plenty of topics, we're just deciding
Well, right.
what will fit. in
Truth
the
be
time.
told, I could give you a whole day's worth of activities, but I promised you all that it would be a morning session, so.
Mrs.
it's-
Barnacle asked for us to extend it to 2 days. but we
There you
said-
go. There you go.
Lots in the cafeteria.
It'll likely be
Yeah, I
a,
heard in the
kind of
Hyannis,
8 to
too.
noon thing.
Yeah.
So, and other than that, we're cruising along. We have now entered, the first MCAS month, so there'll be lots of MCAS activities in all schools, but we're ready to go.
That's great. Thank you, Mrs. Boyd. Questions for Mrs. Boyd? All right, we have already covered unfinished business. There is no new business, public access.
Very excited about the grant. It's been very well received across the street for sure. That is fantastic news.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
That's it. Thank you.
We'll move to open forum. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Hagerty, second by Mr. Goodwin. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Boys basketball won.
Yes! Excellent.
64 to 51, and hockey's up 4-1.
Girls Friday night, weather permitting.
Girls Friday